Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Elite City Podcast. We are at Elite City Pod on all social media. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. We are finished with All In and All Out, and we have the crew here today to discuss All Out. We got some things happening. How's everybody doing? First off,
I'm good. Yeah,
I'm great.
This is a show I really want to talk about.
Rick's really excited about it.
I am.
Agreed.
I have stuff to. I actually took notes this time during the pay-per-view, so I'm excited.
How
studious. And then I spent I was writing my notes toward the end, just turned into oh god, no.
See, I take notes every show because I used to not, and then we would record and I'm like, oh man, I forgot to talk about like everything. So
yeah, I realized I was doing that there was like stuff I wanted to say that I ended up not saying because I didn't write it down. So yeah.
Oh wow, I'm bad at this.
No, you're just younger than us.
Yeah, you have memory.
The nicest thing you guys have ever said to me.
You have memory. So
yeah, you still have your memory.
So what did you think? All Out.
I thought it was amazing. I don't want to say my expectations were low, but it's that time span is just not enough. So I always think it's like, oh, it's going to be bad. Not bad, but it's going to be lower than average standards for AEW because there's only 2 weeks. It can't be good. And it was amazing.
Do you think it delivered better than All In?
I'm going to cop out and say no because it's a different show.
Okay,
yeah,
that's fair.
That was my main feeling on this.
I just wanted to ask a tough question.
No, that was a great question.
I think it was the complete opposite of All In. And
That's
not
fair.
that it was bad, but it was the complete opposite. I remember that last week when we talked about All In, week before when we talked about All In, I said that it was a really fun show that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
This was the opposite. I enjoyed it, but this was not fun. This was like the complete opposite of fun. It wasn't bad. I'm not saying it was bad, but it was great. I liked it, but it was very, very different. I don't watch modern TV, but like this is so based on old dated television references. Like All In was like watching like 30 Rock or The Simpsons or something where you're like, this is fun and I'm having a good time. And then All Out was like Game of Thrones or something like where you're like, oh no, it had like a much more dramatic story. It was also gritty and like uncomfortable. And like I honestly, there were times when like I turned away.
That's a good descriptor, is uncomfortable, because a lot of the spots make me uncomfortable. I've told you guys, I don't do the extreme stuff too well. I'm just like, nope, can't stomach that. Can't do it.
Like even one of the Tamer matches, the MJF Garcia match, like there was blood, but there was also like spit and snot.
Yeah.
And like even that was just like, ugh. That could have been a warning for me to like, oh, this is the first match. This is gonna be a thing. But like, and I sound negative, but I'm not. I thought it was a really good show. I loved it. I wanted to talk about it. There was great matches, but there was like, that's expected from an AEW pay-per-view at this point. Like the matches are going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
This show made you think things. It made you feel things. It made you want to talk about it. And I don't know. Personally for me, it made me want to see what's next.
For sure.
Whereas AEW seems to have that problem sometimes, is their shows are really good as like a self-contained show, but they don't make you necessarily want to see the next thing. Whereas
it's almost kind of like the stories don't evolve from, like, they stop at the pay-per-view and that's it. You're done. Like that chapter has ended. So now we have to start something new. Whereas, All Out kind of felt like,
I watched this one, I was like, oh no, I need to see Dynamite. Like I need to know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it felt like, I don't know, it felt like more like a drama in that sense. Like you'll watch an episode of a TV show and then you're like, oh,
cliffhangers.
I have to see the next one. Right. Like it was, I don't know. I loved it.
Same. Jay, how did you feel?
Well, I'm poor and I don't buy pay-per-views. But I saw some of it and it just, honestly, it's just too gritty for me. I just can't do that extreme stuff. Watching Statlander go down on thumbtacks on her thighs just was like way too much. I'm sorry, like I get the ick, okay?
No,
I really can't do the blood and the spit and like the snot like Rick said. I just can't. Like some of it's just too like light tubes. No way. I'm out. 100% out. Like I just can't do that. It's too much for me.
It was a lot.
I'm a weenie. I admit it. Like I just
not
can't.
live. I watched it like the next day after it aired by myself. And like it's one of those shows where I'm like, I wish I wasn't watching this by myself. Like it was like it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like it does. But it was like a good, good creepy horror movie or like a good, psychological thriller type thing where you're like, this is disturbing, but interesting.
Well, it makes you think.
Yeah.
That's what I was just gonna say. Like I'm a horror movie buff. I love horror movies. That was a great analogy, but you have to keep it within reason. I don't want AEW to turn into like FMW from like 1993. Like I don't mind the gratuitous violence if it's needed. Like I didn't think anything in the Swerve match, which we'll get to. I don't think anything was overdone. I don't think anything was too extreme because the level of the feud. But if you just have like Evil Uno versus Action Andretti in a barbed wire match for no reason, I don't care. Like
that, you're right. It makes the violence that they had on the show made sense.
Right.
Whereas if they do it all the time, that was actually one of the questions I had. Where does AEW go from here? I feel like they have to tone it down a little bit now, just for not because it was too far in the sense that it was dangerous or reckless or I don't want to sound like one of those internet commentators that's like, oh, they're putting people's lives at risk. Like it is dangerous, but I'm sure all these things were done as safely as they could have possibly been done. But
minus the cinder block, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But in the last little while, we've had people set on fire. We've had Darby Allin hung. We've had Danielson, the stuff with Danielson this week. We had the stuff with Swerve and Hangman. Like they can't keep this up. Just from like a stylistic viewpoint, they can't keep this up.
Right, and like as we see, like all that there was deeper meaning to all that. Like it led to something, and it led to something that, I mean, according to storyline, it's been going on for a long time, but it's the new storyline with Moxley. But they're going to tell you that there was tension and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. So they're going to build the I don't want to say the need for violence, but they're going to make it justifiable. And as long as they can do that, I'm okay with it still.
Yeah.
But again, back to what you're saying, you're also correct. Like there is only so much you can do before, I don't want to say before you numb your audience, but before like, again, we're going to talk about the cinder block later, but if you do the cinder block thing again, it's not as impactful.
Yeah.
So you need
to be a little bit of like the fears people had in the Attitude Era after Mick Foley flew off the cell. People are like, well, what are you going to do now?
Right.
Like you can't, Jeff Hardy can only climb up so many higher and higher ladders.
Right.
Before like you can't climb up a higher ladder because you will actually die.
It'll lose its meaning too if you do it. We've talked about that before. Like if you do it too much, it starts to lose its meaning or its significance. It's doesn't feel like Blasco said, as impactful.
Yeah, the reason that this made everyone feel so interested and uncomfortable was because it meant something. Like the Hangman Swerve feud meant something. And, but it wouldn't if it was done all the time.
Well, yeah, and going back to your question, if they deliver storylines that go on for 9-10 months a year, and you get a blow off like that once a year, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, because this Hangman Swerve storyline had been going on for like a year. Like the first promo they had was a year. So it does. I'm not arguing that it didn't make sense in the course of this particular storyline.
Absolutely. But if they keep it as they did this, because this was almost done to perfection.
Yeah.
If they keep it this way, I think they'll be good. But like I said, if it gets too gratuitous, then it's just like, it's like people that go on the internet to watch violence. Everyone's jaded now. Like nothing's shocking.
Yeah, everybody is desensitized to it.
That's the word I was looking for.
Is that the word you're looking for? Yeah.
Not jaded.
everybody's desensitized. It definitely, and it happens if you see enough of it, it's
For sure.
It's not as impactful. It's not as extreme. It's not as,
Now, here's another sort of not specific to AEW, but just an overall question. I remember, I'm old enough to remember that there was the first time I saw someone go through a table in a wrestling match was it was Harley Race, I think, and Hulk Hogan. And Harley Race put Hulk Hogan on a table and then jumped off, and Hogan moved, and Harley Race went through the table, and they sold it like death. Like it was it was over. He was dead. And it was shocking, right? But now like people go through tables 5 times a week. Right? So stuff that you can get up to a level where stuff no longer matters because you've seen it so many times. But like going through a table isn't inherently dangerous. Falling on a cinder block or getting light tubes in your face, are like there is an inherent danger to that. That can't be commonplace. That can't be like a table break.
Right, because like honestly, the table is part of the spot. It's helping you. It's not hurting you. The other things are just they're implements of pain.
Yeah, like there's the light tube is only smashing on your head. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's not breaking your fall. It's not. No, it's just meant to cut you open. Ugh.
How do people? This is obviously none of us have done it. How do you do the splits on thumbtacks and get hit in the face with a light tube and then just like move on with your day?
Oh my gosh,
adrenaline.
Adrenaline has to be a big part of it. Because I've seen, when I still had Twitter, and I followed a lot of wrestlers in the indie circuit. Effie is a big one that does death matches. He and Alley Catch, and he'll post pictures of like his back, and it is just scratched up, and it is just, because he went down on like thumbtacks or something, or he got beat with something full of thumbtacks or nails. And it's brutal, and the glass and stuff that they have to get picked out of their skin, like it's just too much for me. I seriously, I don't know how they do that other than like, adrenaline. I don't know how you would withstand that pain and continue to do it and be like, that was fun, I want to do it again in 3 weeks. I'm out.
Yeah, it's. We've talked about it a lot, but that Willow Statlander match was excellent. It was a great match.
From starting with my notes, I think the lead-in video that they had for this match was the best like pre-production AEW has ever done.
I think All Out overall, all of their videos, this one in particular, but all of them were better. I don't know if they did hire some new people or just because the storylines were so good. But you're right. The production and their promo videos were excellent.
Yeah, the lead-in video to this match was when we first started this podcast, me and you always used to talk about like to be different. Tony Khan like literally did 180. This is WWE. This is going to be us. He treats the wrestling like a real professional sport. That felt like the lead-in before UFC fight. So people can understand what I'm talking about. Like that's what it felt like, or like a boxing match or something. Like it didn't feel pro wrestling at all.
Even
and
at
I
the
loved
beginning, they followed Statlander from the back out to the ring. That seemed really cool and like gritty and real, and that's what they would do in a boxing match or a UFC match. Like it had a feeling, definitely.
Now, to me, I wrote down this was the fun violent match, if that makes any sense.
Yes. This was in terms of like enjoyment.
Yeah.
This was probably the match I most enjoyed on the show.
Yeah.
Because I can't with a good conscience say I enjoyed any of the more violent matches. Like I enjoyed them as a story, but not as a wrestling match. But yeah, this was fun violence. This was the violence that I like to see, I guess.
Yeah, and first off, kudos to Willow whenever she rolled off the table, but then still took all of Stat's legs to her neck and back. Oh, I thought
first when this followed the Ospreay Pac match, which was outstanding. Like when I saw them coming, Stat coming out next, my first thought was, oh, I feel bad because how are they going to follow that? And then I was like, oh, they followed it, and like it was such a different match, but it was so good.
It kind of reminded me of the Rosa and Britt Baker Lights Out match, the first one, when me and you were talking before it was happening, like, how are they going to end this show? It like has to be like out of this world. And well, not only was it, but it was so different. Like, we never saw, like, not to sound sexist or anything, but we never saw women bleed on a wrestling TV show before.
Right.
So to see Britt all busted up, like that was gnarly.
And this match, the Willow stat match, was not only like violent and had a story, but it was also super well put together. Like a lot of hardcore matches or extreme matches end up with like just spot to spot to spot, right? It's just like, we're going to set up a table. Then we go through this table. Now I'm going to set up some chairs, right? But like, this didn't feel like that.
And let's give Stokely Hathaway some credit. The R.I.P. New Jack on the chair.
Yeah.
I legitimately belly laughed. I was so happy that was done.
I don't have too many notes. One of my notes for this match was "this rules." Like, that's all I wrote, because it was just really good.
Now,
the ending was a little odd, in my opinion.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. The ending, I don't want to say they cut their time, but it seemed like they got to the ending really quick, didn't it?
Yeah, I felt, because, well, first of all, what happened? Did Willow submit, or did the ref stop it?
I think the ref stopped it.
I thought the ref stopped it, but I wasn't certain. Which I guess you can call you can stop a match. You can stop a match in a street fight, which I wasn't sure you could, but I guess you can. That does make logical sense. But I would have liked it to be more dragged out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like I said, it seemed like it was like, okay, we're going. Oh, it's over. Like, it was like, I don't want to say just getting into it.
Struggled in the chain for longer.
Yeah.
And then, passed out or something, and then stayed passed out for a minute, and then the ref was like, "Well, I have to stop it now."
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it felt like she was only in it for 10 seconds or something, and the ref stopped the match. It felt like a really rushed ending. I think you're right. They probably did cut it, or it went overtime, or
something, because it was just like, oh, here's the end. Oh, it's over. Like, I don't know. Like, and
I don't think it took away from it. I think the match was still great.
Agreed.
But it was a little awkward at the time.
And let's give Excalibur credit for physically saying Spanish announce table. I was so happy. Like, it's the little things, and that made me so happy that.
So what do you think is next for either of them?
French announce table. Oh,
sorry.
I don't know. I would like to see. I think they're actually both going to go after Mercedes, because I think Willow's going to go after the New Japan belt again, and I think Stat's going to go after TBS.
I think Stat should go after it, even though they're both heels. Stat and Mercedes are both heels, so maybe involving Willow, maybe do like a 3-way or something, because Stat, I think Stat probably deserves a belt at this point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But a heel versus heel title match would be kind of strange.
Yeah. And like, I understand why they gave her the belt to take it off her so she could become heel.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. She deserves a better title reign than she had.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Willow's she's such a good face that she should.
Oh, yeah.
She should be all over the place. Like, she's so good.
A great face, yeah.
I'm wondering if one day, I mean, she's so hot right now, you can't not make her a heel, but I wonder if one day we'll get heel Willow and what that would look like. Because I could see
really
her just
interesting.
Full blown chaos.
Yeah, because when I saw her at Enjoy in Pittsburgh, she was face.
Okay.
She wrestled with Edith Surreal, and they were face against, it was a tag team match, and I think they were against the Runway, who were these really fun, very glittery gay guys. They're great. They are so funny. They're very funny heels. Like, it's very comedic how they carry themselves.
Awesome.
And then there was another group too. I think it was I can't remember, Dylan, somebody. I feel so bad I can't remember his name, and another girl was with him. But it was a fun match, and Willow and Edith, obviously, they were faces, because like, Willow's so bubbly. Like, how is she not a face,
Right.
Like, she's just so bubbly.
I would think that Willow can't be a heel because she's just so, she's so positive, but like, I feel like she would surprise me and be great at it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. She might be like the uber super take it to the extreme to be a heel. because everyone expects her to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Oh, she would be a fun heel. I would like to see her be
better
like
heel
House
than
of.
Mercedes.
I'd like to see her be House of Black, but I'd like to actually see Mercedes type heel. Now that you say that, so I'm going to take back my statement. Yeah,
I think she what if be like Mercedes.
That'd be sick.
I could see her being a heel. Like, I was positive this whole time. I was nice to the fans. I was nice to everybody. Bad things happened to me, and I kept smiling. And look where it got me.
Look where it got me.
Yep.
And then she just turns on everyone.
The JP Warhorse route. Nihilism.
I could see that. But either way, like, I hope they both have a good follow up on this, because
agreed. It's deserved.
They're both really good. They both really deserve it.
Yes. And just everything that let's not forget, like, Stat basically blew out both of her knees
right
in the past 5 years too. Like, since AEW.
Yeah.
Like, so
yeah, she deserves a lot.
Yeah. So moving along, we had
we're not gonna do every match because it's
Correct.
been a while and everyone's seen all, and we have a lot to talk about. So we're just gonna do the main beats. Anyone listening to this, we assume that you know what happened.
Correct. Oh yeah, we probably should have warned you there's gonna be spoilers, but it's 20 minutes in now, so deal with it.
And it's like a week after the pay-per-view. So
correct. Yeah, if you haven't figured it out yet. We had Bryan Danielson versus, I almost said Jungle Jack Perry, I don't know why, versus Jack Perry, who is the TBS champion.
TNT champion.
Yeah, TNT champion, excuse me. Danielson has the stipulation, when he loses, he will retire. We had Jim Ross on commentary, which always makes things better.
I love Jim Ross.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
He was especially good on All Out, I thought.
I was just going to say that. It's almost like going back to the violence, limited Jim Ross makes it even 10 times more special.
Right.
I'm sorry. I just remembered at the very first Pittsburgh show when Jim Ross was calling matches and he was sitting there without his shoes on national television. I'm sorry. Carry on.
That's awesome.
I love when JR hates things, because a lot of the time he hates the same things I hate. Like Jack Perry was biting Danielson, and Jim Ross just like, I hate that. I don't understand why you're doing that. Why are you biting someone? Like, I love it. Because that's not scripted. That's not like part of a story.
Right.
Like, he just hates a thing and he wants to talk about it. And I love it. I think he's doing great.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I also want to say I really like that Jack Perry didn't lean into the CM Punk stuff too much, really at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agreed.
Because he could have. It was in Chicago. There was a brief CM Punk chant when he first showed up on the screen. He could have like leaned into it. He could have done the CM Punk hand gesture and like done a GTS and like got heat. But that would have been like cheap, no gain heat, because he's not in a feud with CM Punk. He's never going to wrestle him.
I think it's better that he didn't give into it.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think it's way, way better that he didn't even mention it, and he got booed for being just
Jack Perry.
Asshole Jack Perry, right? Like, so that just being just a prick on his own. So I think that was really cool. I could see him being tempted to do it because it would get you a boo. It would get you a reaction, but I'm glad he didn't.
Now, I have a question for you, Rick. Do you think that this match was produced to be slow and methodical on purpose, considering everything else that happened?
I didn't think of that, but that makes a lot of sense for sure. At the beginning, I felt like it was a little awkward, like a little off. And then Danielson did that springboard over the ropes, and kind of the crowd went nuts for it. And that felt like it went into a different gear. But you're right. Maybe they did structure it to be a slower match because of the chaos that was going to come next.
Right. And like, I mean, first off, no matter what you did, you weren't touching Hangman and Swerve, like on what they were going to do.
Right. Nor was the storyline at the level of it. They don't really have a feud, really. I mean, they kind of do, but not really.
But this being basically just a pro wrestling match.
Yeah.
It was like, I know that's like, it's a pro wrestling show, so to say, well, that's what made it different. Like for it just
this show, it did, because there was very few straight pro wrestling matches. Yeah.
And that's what I wrote that down. Like, I wonder if they did that on purpose, but I agree with you. I think they did.
How good did Jack Perry look though? I thought he looked great.
He looked very great.
His wrestling was good. His like character work's been since he's come back. I don't know. Maybe he got a acting coach, or he just learned stuff in Japan or something. But his overall presentation, his character, he feels more confident now when he does things. He just seems just better at everything.
All around, yes. When I say this, I'm not cutting on him to say that he was ever unprofessional, but he seems more understanding what a professional wrestler is now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, all it took was getting choked out backstage.
Right. Well,
So
and wanting to
maybe-
use real glass.
So maybe that was a good thing. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good match. I liked it a lot.
Violence is the answer.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, well, we've already discussed offline how bullying is the answer. So maybe violence is the
True.
answer too.
That is true. So
If
Danielson,
anyone's listening, violence is not the answer. Don't take us seriously.
that is also true. We are from a different time.
Bullying's not cool.
No.
Yeah,
Stay in
and-
school.
That was a funny one.
Way to be cool and relevant with the kids,
Yeah.
Rick.
Hell yeah. What are you gonna say next? Say no to
Way to
drugs?
be relevant with our demographic of elder millennials and Generation X.
Yeah, they'll understand all that. Bust out the DARE program next. Danielson wins. There was really no, like, I don't think it hurt Jack Perry in any way.
No.
If anything, it elevated him.
Yeah.
Because of what happened afterwards. Danielson wins, and then the Bucks come down, and it looks like there's going to be World War III, and then Christian even comes down. It looks like he's even going to cash in, which Christian having the contract in a like steel folder instead of a briefcase, so it's not WWE.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing in the world.
The folder says next AEW.
Next
champion on
AEW
it.
Yes. I was like, please let that be I wanted it to be like just a clipboard, but I was like, no, the contract's inside of it. That's even better.
It's great.
It is
Christian's
so
wonderful.
very
I
wonderful.
hope he doesn't cash in for a long time, just because I like him walking around with it.
I have a
fun.
theory. I have a theory that I'm going to get to. So
Alright.
we're getting there. So anyways, so it looks like Christian's going to cash in, and the BCC with Pac and Marina Shafir show up,
And Mox.
and Mox, excuse me. Well, yeah,
He hadn't been around in a while, so
that is true. So it's like, oh, some of our questions are answered. Here's the BCC's back together, or not back together, still together and still strong. Danielson even had a smile on his face. And then Marina, Pac, Claudio, and Mox turn on Danielson and Wheeler Yuta, who also can't forget he's part of the Trios champions with Pac and Claudio. So that's
what's gonna happen there?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's going to be interesting. So that's how that was the last sanction match, and that's how it ended. So there's a lot to unpack here.
Well, when Mox came out, there was a side of me that thought, oh, he's gonna turn. Like I
Yeah.
did think he was gonna turn.
Oh, definitely, I agree.
But first of all, I didn't expect all the rest of them to turn. I didn't think Claudio and Pac were gonna turn too.
I was just going to say I thought it would be only Mox.
Yeah, and I did not think he was going to turn the way he turned.
Well, yeah, I mean, geez, it was...
I gasped. I was like, oh dear God. Like I don't if anyone had seen my reaction, it was like I was completely stunned. I was completely taken aback. I was completely shocked. It was disturbing but incredible. But disturbing.
Agreed. Now, here's the thing about that situation that I never understood in my entire life. I cannot comprehend how you suffocate in a bag, because why wouldn't you just bite through it? From the time I was a kid, I can't comprehend how that happens. Your teeth can literally bite through bone. It can't bite through a Walmart bag.
I
Excuse
mean,
me.
I guess
Like-
just like how it's positioned on you.
I mean,
put your teeth together and grind them. Like,
well, babies don't have teeth sometimes, so that's the problem.
Yeah, like babies do it.
Yeah,
I
I understand
babies.
No, I don't know. Yeah, it seems like you could just rip the bag open.
Yeah, like,
you know,
but it's the way the mafia used to kill people, and I never understood. Like, why wouldn't you just close your mouth?
I think it's just hard. It's just hard to do in the
heat of the moment.
In the heat of the moment, like in the environment you're in, to get your wits around you to do that.
I would understand that, but it's just, I don't know. My first reaction would be, oh, I'm going to bite through this. Like,
well, my next question is, how did Mox not kill him on that show? I mean, it was a real bag.
Well,
you could see it moving in the air.
Do we address the elephant in the room about wrestling, Rick?
No, but like, I know that there was probably like he left a gap in the bottom or something.
Yeah.
Right. Because. Yeah. But it didn't look like that at all.
No, it looked really good.
It looked
like real. It looked real. Yeah.
I mean,
my next question is, does AEW not have access to a stretcher?
I thought it was funny they carried him back.
Because like 3 or 4 guys just like weirdly carried him out of like, you have you're a medical team.
Right, because I feel like every like WWE show, they always are like, here comes the medical team, and they've got like the ambulance pulls in and the stretcher, and they throw Roman Reigns on it, and then like Brock throws the stretcher with Roman Reigns on it.
But how did they not have this just follows the trend of AEW not knowing, like their medics not knowing how to. Didn't they put a oxygen mask on MJF's forehead once?
Maybe that's the gimmick. Like maybe
they did. They put an oxygen mask on his forehead, and they did something with Regal too. Like
they messed up his neck brace. It was like on his chin,
on his chin or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the gimmick. Like AEW's unsafe, and I mean I don't know.
You don't just randomly carry a guy out. Well, you get a stretcher.
well, hold on. There might be some reasoning to this.
All right.
And I just thought of this right now. Is that how you explain to the possible people in the crowd who might not know what's happening, aka like a little kid, that like, oh, like he's okay, they didn't even let the EMTs deal with him? Like,
I mean, they did give him oxygen,
right? But like,
oh, now you made me think how traumatized a kid at that show would be.
Right? Do you mean like maybe to make it less extreme for children?
Yeah, like if they would have brought up the medical
stuff with a guy getting beaten with a cinder block.
You watch somebody get hit with a light tube, but this is too much.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, because like, you know, if you're there live, it's a different, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking of the live crowd, they chanted "This is murder," which I thought was great.
I thought that was great too.
But yeah, this was super shocking. It was. I was completely stunned.
Yeah.
And JR's reaction to it was perfect. Him just being like, "This isn't wrestling. This isn't something that people should do." Like, the people on the internet thought that was real.
Right.
That he was mad at AEW doing it, but like, no, he's a character on TV. Like,
correct.
Come on, people.
And everybody knows that Terry Funk did this in, like, I don't know, I think the early 80s, late 70s.
And I think he was the booker at the time.
And I was going to say, and I'm pretty sure Jim Ross called it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But his reaction, everything about this was like, it was supposed to be terrifying and shocking and horrific. And it was. Like, they carried it out to perfection.
Yeah. It was unbelievably well, like, again, one of those things that you haven't seen in pro wrestling in so long, because, well, like what Jay said, WWE does something and then it turns absurd, which isn't my style. And I know some people like that, but like about Brock, like they put someone on a stretcher and then
who in their right mind would let somebody touch them? Like, what EMT would let somebody touch somebody on a stretcher in their right mind? And on top of that, isn't that like incredibly dangerous for Roman being attached to a stretcher and thrown around? Like, isn't that dangerous? Like,
my favorite is how almost every time they put someone in an ambulance, there's another wrestler in the ambulance, either in the back or driving the ambulance.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never forget me and my buddy Frank to this day will just text each other the meme whenever it was the Undertaker driving and Raw ended when he turned around and went, "Where to, Stephanie?"
I'm sorry, I snorted because I knew exactly where that was going.
Like, we might not talk to each other for like weeks on end, and we'll just get a text. It'll say, "Where to, Stephanie?" And then we'll start talking. Like seriously, like that's so dumb, but amazing and hilarious. Yeah, but that would be my reasoning why they carried him out, to make it like a little bit pro wrestling.
Unless like this was a real like incident, somebody got hurt kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And for what was coming up next, I mean, do we just want to get into the lights out match?
Yeah, to like the horrific scene.
Hangman versus Swerve in a steel cage. First off, going back to JR, I thought it was absolutely hilarious that he was explaining to Taz and Excalibur the different ways you can injure a human with barbed wire. Like, I mean, they were obviously all correct, but he was like, you can wrap it around their arm. It's like, yeah, Jim, you can do all that.
My other favorite Jim Ross moment in this match was Tony Schiavone said something. He burned down his house, and it was a nice house. And then JR goes, well, the point is not that it was a nice house. The point is that it was his house that was like sentimental to him because he grew up there, and like it's an emotional moment for him. It has nothing to do with the quality of the house. It was great.
Yeah, he just put Tony Schiavone in his place.
Because Tony Schiavone was like, it was a nice house. I mean, if it was a bad house, this wouldn't matter. Like, it was run down, so who cares that he committed arson?
Right. That's how they got around it. It's
right.
Condemned. When a match starts with a guy putting a staple gun on another guy's face and like activating the staples, you're in for like no lockup, no nothing, just staples to the cheek.
As Hangman was stapling Swerve.
Yeah.
Nana's on the outside yelling, "You stupid idiot!"
Yeah.
See, to someone who has been stapled together, it's so horrific. Like I can't, like I have to preface this because everybody's like, wow, probably like listening, like what a weenie, can't take like all this, this match. It's not that bad, but you have to understand, like,
it is that bad.
I went through like, I had an organ transplant. I had half of my side cut open, and I had my innards rearranged and then stapled back together.
And weirdly, then they threw you on a cinder block, which I thought
right.
A little too much.
And then I had to go back 24 hours later, and they had to go back into surgery and fix an artery, and then I had to get stapled back together. So I have lived through enough trauma. Thank you. I really don't want to relive it with others.
There were so many like you're correct. When you said, people are going to say like, it wasn't that bad. No, it was that bad.
Yeah,
like,
it was that bad.
There were so many times in this match where I like actively winced or like turned away for a minute. Like it was bad. Like not bad that I didn't like, not bad in the sense that they did it badly. Just
yeah, right.
It's gruesome.
It was over the top violence. Like it was a lot of violence. Like he lawn dart. I think was it Swerve who lawn darted Hangman into a chair?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like that was her. Like that was that was like 5 minutes in, right? Like it was.
I mean, like we've talked about the cinder block a couple times, and like going back to what Jay just said, she had medical problems. I broke my back. So when I see people do like that crazy like stuff when they involves like their back and spine, it freaks me out.
Was that a real cinder block?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I was like, oh, that's crumbling 100%. And then he power bombed him on it.
And it didn't break.
And it didn't break.
And like he had red streaks down his back.
Yeah.
Cinder blocks, the way they are, they have weak points. And then they have like their strong points. Right. So it just depends on how the force and it's all physics and all that.
Because previously when Swerve used the cinder block, like it crumbled the second you touched it, right? Like it was, as soon as you hit it, like it was obviously not cement. It was meant to break apart. I think this was an actual cinder block.
I agree. Just because Hangman had the scrapes that if you ever handled a cinder block, you usually get those on your shin when you like when you're like
You
laying a
crack
wall
your
down.
shin off of-
Yeah. And he had the same scrapes, so I would imagine it was
They
real.
handled it like they navigated around it as if it were real. There was one time Swerve was getting up and he reached to pick up a chair, and I think he touched the cinder block first just because he was reaching down, and he like immediately moved over to the chair like, oh, I'm not going to use that.
Right.
Whereas if it was fake, he would have just picked it
Yeah.
up and thrown it at him. Right. Like they were conscious of enough to be
Right.
like careful around it because it was probably a real cinder block.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so gnarly. Like, I just can't even fathom why you would want to do that. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, you're involved in the story and it made sense, but like, I don't know. That's commitment to your craft, and you got to respect that. But
And how do you do that? Like, how do you even do that? Like, you're someone who got hurt not falling on a cinder block.
Exactly.
So, like,
Yeah.
how do you fall on a cinder? I don't get it. Like, how do you not break your spine?
Yeah, like, or blow out a disc, or even just
something.
herniate a
Like-
disc. Like, I mean,
That's an easy
unreal.
hernia. Absolutely.
Like, how do you not like suffer kidney damage or something? Right? Like, you're dropping your
Something.
back on a brick. right?
Because I mean, when they do spots on like the edge of the mat, you know that's hard. You know that's not padded. I couldn't even
Right.
imagine
Oh yeah,
like,
that.
a cinder block has to be at least 3 times as bad as that.
Because at least the mat has some padding. It's not like a sharp edge. It's hard,
No.
but it's
And-
padded
Right.
in the sense that it's not going to cut you.
Right.
Right. But like this
Right.
is, yeah, I don't know.
It's not even like it was like 10 cinder blocks, and you know, oh, that probably didn't hurt that bad. Like, no, that was one cinder block in the small of his spine.
Yeah.
Like, that's gnarly.
Yeah, like you said earlier, how like a table would break your fall, right? Because it's
Right.
spreads out the impact, or it makes it so you don't crash right into the mat, right? But like, yeah, this was not designed to
right.
break
You're
anyone's
taking
fall.
all the force on a small surface area
Yeah.
versus a table is a large surface area.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's like the bed of nails type thing. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to lay on one nail, but you'll lay on a bed of but still.
Right. But like,
Um,
one thing I wanted to say was when Swerve climbed up the
Yeah.
cage and was going to do the Swerve stomp onto him, all I thought of was
Mhm.
when Copeland did that and he landed on his and like broke his leg, and I was
Yeah.
really glad when he didn't jump, because I was like, oh, he's going to break his
Yeah.
leg, like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. It was just so gnarly all around.
And another thing I wrote down about JR was he explained things so well. Like he was saying, because people, I think Tony Schiavone was like, how do they keep kicking out after all this horrible stuff? Which, yeah. But JR's explanation was, oh, they're both so tired and both so beaten down that even the guy covering him isn't really covering him because he's so
Oh, yeah.
exhausted
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
that
cool.
it doesn't take much to kick out at this point.
That's why JR is true pro.
Yeah.
Just you wouldn't like, you know, I mean, obviously he didn't have that road down. That was just banter during the match, and then his professionalism kicked in and explained it, and he didn't have to. Like,
Right.
that's unreal.
Yeah.
Anyways,
And somehow
hey,
the cinder block
continue.
wasn't the worst part of the match.
well, I have questions here. Was there an actual needle in that? I don't think there was.
I think there was. I think it just didn't work out properly. I think it was supposed to stick in his cheek better than it did.
Right. And see,
Sorry.
I thought the whole point of that would be like they wanted to stick it all the way through.
Yeah.
You know, so like they'd make a hole in his cheek.
Yeah.
But then happened. And why, like I understand they were trying to like make it so like they like drugged him.
Yeah.
But if you were gonna use like a gimmicked thing, why wouldn't you have, again, this is if the needle was fake. Why wouldn't you put it into his neck? Why his cheek? But
I think
if the
that's
needle
why
was real,
it was
I
real,
understand what they were
because
trying to
it's
do.
easier to
Okay,
put in.
that's
It's easier to put in a real needle into someone's cheek than anywhere else in their body.
like, and that's what I said. Like, I understand that, but I didn't see the needle, so I was asking. Like that
Yeah,
was
I
what
thought it was real because it did hang out of his
Okay.
mouth, like it did stick in.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It did stick in.
But yeah,
See,
that was
it's-
disgusting.
you need to get 4K to see the needle.
Yes, watching
HD doesn't cut it.
once you got to that point, I was like, okay, this is too much. Like I honestly felt like it was too much at that point.
That
At that part, I laughed. I thought that was just the most absurd thing I ever saw in my life. But like, it was bad, but I laughed.
Like
Now,
he was putting it in, I turned away, and I think I saw the chair shot, but like I wasn't looking at that point. Like it was a lot.
Well, this is where I'm going to give him credit. The chair shot was 1,000% gimmicked, and I'm glad it was.
Yeah,
because it was. I mean, Swerve was supposed to be drugged, so there was no hands up. Yeah, no hands. Yeah.
I mean, he still got hit in the head with a piece of metal, which isn't great. Like it's still.
Yeah, but if you slow it down, a regular
chair for sure.
Exactly, and if you slow it down, you can see like the mechanism that they built. They basically just made a door, and like there must have been like, Hangman must have had like the releases, and like as he's getting closer, you can see when like, I mean, like you said, he still gets hit, but you can see when it detaches before it hits him. And then it just goes around his neck, but he does still get hit.
And this, like the sound that came from that, though, I don't even know how they did that.
I have no idea.
It sounded brutal.
It sounded brutal. Yes, it did. Genius, whoever built that.
And even them cutting to the wide shot when he did it, obviously to cover it being fake. That worked because it was like, oh, this is too much. We don't need to be this close for this.
Exactly. And that opened a whole new door for if they ever wanted to do like another chair shot, then you can gimmick it and do that again. And you've already explained yourself. Like, we don't quote unquote want to show this. Like, that's awesome.
I just think that's another thing that has to be used sparingly because he is still getting hit in the head. Right? Yeah, I mean, he's not getting hit in the head with a real chair, but he's still getting hit in the head. So don't do that too often.
Yeah, that
I was fine with it. Not fine with it, but I was like, if they were fine with it, it was fine to do in that match. But like, don't do it again for a long time.
Oh yeah, like that's special. That's a special occasion. I made it sound like it was a good thing, but yeah, that's only used very rarely, just because you don't want to give somebody CTE.
Yeah. So what did you think of this match?
I liked it. I didn't think that it was over the top. I could see how some people would. That being said, it goes back to the horror movie thing. When I want that, I will watch a horror movie. I don't need that in my wrestling.
Yeah.
If it's going back to what we said at the beginning, I don't want to say needed as in the needed is going to be in quotes here. If it's needed as in a storyline, absolutely. But like I said, I don't want FMW matches from Japan. Like, seen it, it's over. I'm over it. It's dumb.
Yeah. Like it made sense for this storyline, and it was good that it made you feel something. It made the storyline more emotional. It was pretty gross, to be honest, but it made you feel something, and it accomplished its purpose. But there was a part of me that is just like, is this what I want from shows? Like, and I felt this way about other TV shows as well, like not just wrestling. Like I watched other TV shows where like they have especially graphic scenes or whatever, and I'm just like, do I want to keep watching this? And,
like, could I watch this over and over and over? Like,
I couldn't. Time, I don't think I'll ever watch this match again, to be honest. Not that it was bad. Like it was a great piece of drama. I watched a video. Simon from What Culture. I think he explained it the best. I wrote it down. He said, I can't tell you that I like this match because I don't think anyone was actually meant to like this match. But as a piece of drama, it was great. And I think that's how I feel.
Yeah, I that's a great way to put it. It's one of those things like you don't have to go. It's like, it's not going to be Macho Man Steamboat, obviously.
Right.
But again, that's not a match you want. You don't want to go watch Hangman Swerve 50 times because you're not meant to. Like, the story was
like the graphic cliffhanger of a show, like a Game of Thrones, like a Red Wedding, where you're like, oh yeah, that was brutal, but it served its purpose, but don't do it all the time. It was something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when there's a really good piece of art and it makes you uncomfortable and you don't necessarily like it, and people will be like, oh, but you think like, oh, hey, that's great, I can appreciate what it is and the detail and the craftsmanship and just what went into it and the work, but you're just uncomfortable and you just don't like it. And that's the way art is supposed to be. Not everybody likes everything of the same thing. But that's what it reminds me of, like just a really weird, gruesome piece of art.
And like in terms of like I think you said, not in terms of wrestling, it wasn't what you necessarily want from wrestling all the time. But in terms of like scripted television, it was excellent scripted. It was excellent scripted television.
That was amazing scripted television. Like, and
even and the crowd felt it. You could tell the crowd felt it.
Oh yeah.
Hangman left, and then there was that moment where he looked like he was going to come back.
Yes.
And the terrified shriek of the crowd of like, don't.
Yeah.
Like it was like someone screamed, like a horror scream. Like it was just like, even the audience was like, okay, stop, just stop. Like,
and that, I'm glad you brought that up, because even Excalibur was like, oh my God, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Like they sold it so well when he started to come back. That was,
I saw it was like a shriek of horror from the audience, because they would just know. Like,
that was Hangman knowing the right buttons to push for the crowd at that moment. Oh, so good.
I'm gonna say this, and I don't want to sound like one of those fans of the internet who thinks wrestlers should win Oscars, because that's ridiculous.
Exactly.
In terms of wrestling acting, Hangman is some of the best acting in professional wrestling I've seen.
Yeah.
Obviously he's not a Hollywood level actor,
right?
But in terms of professional wrestlers, he's probably one of the best,
because he gets it to the point where he's actually acting. He's not overacting and like doing like the over drama. He's the subtleties with his facial expressions and I mean when he gets bug-eyed, that's just amazing. Like
he always seems like an actual person, and it seems like something that you could go, oh, if I was that person, I can understand why he's acting like that.
Yeah.
Like not just this, even the stuff, before with the Elite and the Dark Order and Kenny Omega. And like, if you're a viewer, you can go, oh yeah, if I was in this situation, I could see acting like that.
Yeah.
Like it's realistic to that point where maybe I wouldn't go to this level, but like if someone else did, I could understand why they did.
Now, I told you I had a little conspiracy theory that I would get to. I personally think that Hangman is going to be with Mox. He's going to be part of that group.
I could see that, maybe. Yeah. I think the thing that's interesting, I found the interesting thing about Mox's group is I've complained a lot about how a lot of the storylines are, oh, this is what the spirit of AEW is. And I can't do another one of those storylines. They've done that too often. But I think that's not what Mox is doing.
Yeah.
Mox is doing, him and Danielson had a plan, and William Regal, I love how they weaved in William Regal without mentioning William Regal.
Yeah.
That was great.
That was great.
They had a plan to train like the next generation of just professional wrestlers to be a certain way. And Mox feels like it should be a violent and brutal way, and Danielson didn't feel that way. And I don't know if that really plays into Hangman, because he doesn't have any interest in training the next generation of wrestlers.
That's true.
I think
Hangman also has like nowhere else to go. Like just on Wednesday, the Dark Order said, I don't even know who you are anymore.
Yeah.
True.
Like it just seems like Hangman has nobody and nowhere to go.
But I mean, I could see it if he was just like, I'm sick of the way wrestling is today, that someone like Swerve would get cheered. Like there's something wrong with that. I could actually see him being against Mox, being like, no, you're the problem. You acting like a cool, violent guy is the problem. Right? That's why Swerve can get cheered, because they're used to people like you. They're used to people, he wouldn't say it, but they're used to people like Steve Austin being like the anti-hero cool guy. And that's the problem.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
So this brings me to I said I had a somewhat philosophical question.
Yeah.
I feel like this, and I don't want to sound like too pompous or in my head too much, and I don't want to sound like this is cinema or anything nonsense like that.
Cinema.
But I do feel like this is kind of an opportunity to talk about what wrestling really is and what it could be and how you can present wrestling, because the way AEW has been presenting themselves over the last couple weeks hasn't been what mainstream wrestling has been in 30 years or so. Like, they're presenting as a TV show and a drama and a narrative and an art in a sense that I don't think anyone has in a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, I always went back to when WWE changed the term to sports entertainment. They dropped the ball when they should have called it performance art. And I would consider AEW performance art because it is it's theater, it's athletics, it's it's literally everything. And like you're right, it's presented in a way that, I mean, like, you got to go back to like the early 80s to the last time wrestling was presented this way. And
yeah,
it's fun. It's a legit like counter to WWE.
I don't even know if it's a counter to WWE for sure, but I think it's a counter to wrestling, because wrestling in our lifetimes,
or American wrestling,
American wrestling in our lifetimes, because like even ECW, which was portrayed as like a over the top violence type thing, and they had emotional and meaningful storylines, but it was always presented still as a wrestling show, right? It was presented as it was a wrestling show where there were no rules and they could do whatever they wanted, but it was a wrestling show. Like Hangman specifically and Mox now as well, they're not even presented as really a wrestling show. These are characters in a drama.
That's true.
At this point, right? Like Mox and Hangman wouldn't even have to wrestle for months, and they could still be compelling and interesting and have storylines.
That's a great point.
Like they're presenting themselves as like something different from wrestlers. They're presenting themselves as like scripted characters on a reasonably good drama. It's very interesting. I don't know if this is
wow.
I don't know if this is is this AEW's direction? Like, is this where they're going? Because if it is, that's really cool.
I mean, it looks like it. And I agree, it's definitely cool.
Because even I don't know, this could have been just based on the venue that they were in, but Dynamite felt different. Dynamite felt grittier a little bit, not in terms of violence, but like, did you notice when they were backstage, most of the backstage stuff happened in the parking garage? Like, it could have just been the venue that they were in.
Oh yeah.
Other than the Bucks, who I think this was on purpose. The Bucks, when they were backstage, had like the Dynamite screen behind them and like the lighting, and it looked like a wrestling promo. But then everything else was just
that's a good point. I didn't even notice that.
In a dark room in the back. Like, it didn't feel like a wrestling show at all.
Wow, that's a good call, dude. I didn't notice any of that.
Interviewed Hangman like walking through a parking lot, and there were other people there. Like Dark Order was there. Like other people were just like, it wasn't a set. It wasn't
right. It would have been like it really would have been if she was catching up with him backstage.
Right, as opposed to like they put up a backdrop and he stands in front of it and does an interview. Like, it just, I don't know. To me, it felt very different.
Good. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I hope what they are doing.
I think that they're taking this like it's realism, but it's dramatic. I don't know. I can't even explain it, but it's something. It feels like something.
Oh, it's good. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's great. I thoroughly. I can't. It's weird because I can't say I enjoyed the pay-per-view, but like, it was compelling television, and I was hooked on it.
It was so good. Any final thoughts from anybody before we wrap things up?
I'm not sure. I do want to say I love that the BCC came out, or whoever the BCC is now, came out in all their violence and beat up. Who did they beat up again? Private Party.
Oh yeah, on Dynamite.
And they like violently beat them up, and like it felt real and it felt gritty. But Pac was still wearing like his ring gear.
I'm glad you said that. I thought that was hilarious.
In, like, t-shirts and jeans and just like fighting, and he's like decked out to wrestle.
I want to just assume that that's how Pac just dresses. Like, he just shows up to the arena in his boots and trunks with no shirt. Like,
he shows up all wet too.
Yeah, 100%.
Box is just like, dude, what are you doing? You don't even have a match today. He's just like,
It's Tuesday. Like that's we're at the hotel.
But yeah, that was another thing. Like that has that happened before in AEW? I mean, it happened in wrestling before, but has that happened in AEW where like they're supposed to have a match and just these guys just come out and just like attack everyone and they just don't have the match?
If it has happened in AEW before, it's been like less than, you could probably count them on one hand.
Yeah.
You know, it hasn't been that many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a time. And we're working towards the Pittsburgh show, the 5th birthday of AEW, which they're obviously going to do something gnarly for that.
Yeah, I mean, Grand Slam's coming up, and they just completely overhauled the Grand Slam card. We don't have to talk about that today, but they did do that.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening here in the next few weeks. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Everybody, again, we are at Elite City Pod on all social media. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and the YouTubers, we're new on YouTube, also at Elite City Pod there. Hit the bell. Make sure to enable your notifications and subscribe.
Drop a comment. Tell us what you thought of the show.
Yeah, also comment. That helps.
I think you can
out.
comment on Spotify too, so do that. Let us know what you thought.
Yeah, you can comment on Spotify. Spotify's weird, so you might not see us. You probably see us easier on YouTube than Spotify. Spotify doesn't like us as much. So they used to really like us. Our impressions were awesome. And then that stopped, and I don't know why.
I'm going to go to our pod right now on Spotify and tell us we suck.
Hey, maybe it'll help the algorithm.
There you
go. So yeah, anyways, everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you next week. So until then, later.